Leah was a simple, weary man. He had not known a peaceful sleep for nearly 10 years. His entire life was an exhausting labor that gnawed at his spirit, and the only thing that kept him steadfast, preventing him from leaving everything behind, was his wife Mika and his daughter Kanami, who loved him sincerely. The moment he returned home, Mika greeted him, and he immediately asked about their daughter Kanami. Mika told him that Kanami had fallen asleep just a short while ago, but she had been persistently asking him all day to get her a small dog. Apparently, she had seen it at a friend's house and could not forget its face or stop thinking about it. Leah was unsure whether they could afford to buy a dog at that time. Things were tight, and money barely sufficed. Yet when he looked at his daughter's face as she slept, he thought to himself, well, if a small dog will make her this happy, it's worth it, even if I have to work extra shifts. The next day, Leah took his daughter Kanami, and they went to a pet store to get the dog. Her face lit up with joy, while Mika looked surprised at his agreement. His work was already exhausting, and adding a dog to his responsibilities would only make things harder. But Leah thought to himself, as long as my wife and daughter are well and happy, I can endure anything. He was gravely mistaken. The following day at work, his manager shouted at him because he had not submitted a report on time, even though Leah had already sent it on Thursday. But the manager had been at the cabaret then and had not seen the message. Nonetheless, he found a way to blame Leah for what happened. All of his work was one strain after another. Either he endured insults from a provocative manager who cared for nothing, or he shouldered the mistakes of colleagues who abandoned their duties. And if any mishap occurred, the blame fell squarely on him. He walked through a field of metaphorical landmines, yet he forgot all his worries when he returned home to see his wife and daughter. Until that day came. Leah was riding the subway on his way to work, when a message from his friend Nita arrived, telling him about a newly released game and asking him to buy it for her. Leah chuckled to himself, thinking that Nita never tires of these games. Since they were friends, he told her he would get it. He got off the subway and opened Google to search for the store. The area was unfamiliar to him. He glanced around, hoping to find something to help, but what he saw shattered him completely. He saw his wife Mika walking out with a strange man. He could not believe it. In fact, he outright refused to believe it. She was supposed to be with Kanami, on their way to sword training. So what was she doing here at this hour of the night? He returned home and asked Mika about her day. She told him that she had taken Kanmi to her training session. He had intended to confront her about what he had seen, but he remained silent. He thought to himself, I do not want to destroy my own home with my hands. He tried to convince himself that he must have misunderstood. It was impossible that Mika would betray him. Deciding to step out for a while to calm his nerves, he attempted to put his computer into sleep mode, but it would not respond. The system kept freezing, forcing him to shut it down and leave the house. He walked through the city until he reached the same place he had seen her the last time, feeling relieved that she was not there. But his relief vanished completely when he heard her voice on the phone, with the same man, and the disaster was that she had taken Kanmi with her as well. He kept telling himself, perhaps he is just a friend helping them. Then he heard Kanmi calling out to that man. Leah's world shattered entirely. And the next day, he returned to work, unable to believe what he had witnessed. He tried to convince himself that there had been some mistake, that what he had seen could not possibly be true. Suddenly, his manager arrived and shouted at him once again. Why are you slacking off? Leah explained that he had been waiting for the device to operate, but it was malfunctioning repeatedly due to security protocols, forcing him to take mandatory breaks each time. The manager did not listen to a single word, continuing to yell, and why take breaks at all? At that moment, Leah received a call from Mika, who informed him that Kanmi had suffered a serious accident and urged him to come to the hospital immediately. He ran with all his strength, and upon arriving, he asked frantically, where is Kanmi? She replied that Kanmi had been taken into the operating room. Soon after, the doctor emerged and asked them, are you Kanmi's parents? Both replied, yes, we are Kanami's parents. The doctor said that a blood donor was needed from one of them, then inquired about their blood types. Leah said, mine is AB positive. Mika said, mine is O negative. The doctor requested Mika to enter the operating room to donate blood, which left Leah astonished, asking, why her? Specifically, the doctor explained that Kanami's blood type was also O negative, and Leah's blood would be entirely incompatible. Leah sat in the hallway, waiting, then opened his phone and began searching online. And the shock hit him. Scientifically, it was impossible for a child to have blood type O if her father's type is AB. The only explanation for this, she was not his daughter at all. Rage and despair consumed him completely. He confronted Mika and asked, is Kanami truly my daughter, or what? Instead of answering, she assumed the victim's role and said, I am supposed to be the one upset. You were never present. You never cared for this home. Leah insisted that he worked day and night for them, but she would not listen, shouting, "Your work has no value. No promotions, no raises, and you cannot give me the life I desire." He could not believe what he heard, yet she continued. 10 years of marriage have passed, and I barely see you. Everything falls on my shoulders alone. She completely ignored the revelation that the child was not his. Then she told him, "You have never been part of this home, and I will take Konami and leave." Leah asked, "Where to?" She did not answer, but knocked on Konami's door and said, "Come, my darling, we are leaving." Leah tried to stop her and held on, but she pushed him away. He begged her, saying, "I have done everything for Konami. Do not leave me." But the final blow came when Konami herself said, "I love my second father." Leah's life shattered completely, and the following day, he went to work with a heart torn apart by the betrayal he had witnessed. Yet the shock had not ended. His manager summoned him and accused him of embezzling funds from the company. Leah denied it, of course, but the manager presented undeniable evidence showing a transfer of 50 million yen from Leah's computer to a mysterious account. Everything worsened. Mika exploited the situation and filed for divorce, also demanding child support for the child who was not his own. To avoid imprisonment, Leah was forced to agree to repay the 50 million yen and take up work as a laborer at a construction site deep inside. He knew that he might die before he could ever repay the sum. His entire life had become ruin. The only small comfort that eased his mind was a message from Nita. Speaking about the final episode of Gundam, Leah was about to reply, excited to watch the episode with her, but he deleted the message. He did not want Nita to know the devastation his life had become. He tried to remain optimistic, telling himself, "Perhaps if I work harder, the world will improve." Yet, while eating lunch, he began coughing blood, realizing he was truly ill and that his days were numbered. That night he tried to sleep, but the coughing worsened, and he could not even afford to see a doctor. Leah sat on his bed, awaiting death, feeling himself slowly fading away. Suddenly, a brilliant light appeared above him, and a vision began to unfold before his eyes. The vision revealed that the person who had stolen the 50 million yen was his own manager, who was also the same man Mika had been unfaithful with. It became clear that all her claims of neglect and lack of attention were lies upon lies, and that from the beginning she had seen him as nothing, exploiting him financially, and participating in the scheme that had falsely accused him. Leah was struck with shock, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Suddenly, a mysterious man appeared and said to him, "Yes, all of this is true. Will you let them go unpunished?" Liam had reached the point of explosion and said, "No, they must pay the price, even if it is the last thing I do in my life." The strange man seemed delighted by the intensity of Liam's anger, and he said, "It is good that I came to you tonight." He had not yet revealed his identity. Liam asked, "Who are you, and why have you come to me in the first place?" The stranger began to explain to Liam that, in truth, he had taken an interest in him because he saw him as a good man, but Liam was not pleased with this statement and replied, "Yes, I was good indeed, and that is what made me lose everything. If I could turn back time, I would live my life selfishly, thinking only of myself." The strange man smiled, clearly pleased with Liam's words, and said, "That is excellent, and that is why I am here now. I have come to give you a second chance, a chance to live another life in an entirely different world. All you must do is choose the world you wish to enter." Liam, half dead on his bed, did not know whether what he was seeing was real or merely a hallucination before death. Yet he told himself, "If this is the last chance, I must choose wisely." He remembered the game he and Nita loved, and he chose a world resembling that game's universe, though he feared he might be born there as a poor farmer living on the outskirts of the planet. But the strange man said to him, "I love you, and therefore I will have you born as the son of a count who rules an entire planet." For the first time, Liam felt a glimmer of hope, sensing that his new life could be far better than his previous one. With his final breath, he signed the contract, and his soul was transported to the new world, to a planet called Hydra. That day happened to be Liam's 5th birthday. His mother had prepared a grand party for him and also told him she had a special gift. She said, "Follow me." Then she activated a light-flying enchantment under her feet, and Liam did the same. When they entered another room, they found a giant cake beside a large box. Liam opened the box eagerly and found a cube inside. His mother explained that it was a device to design his personal mechanical character. He could choose everything about it himself and then send the order to the factory to create his own robot, capable of altering its ears, mouth, and other features that a child should never actually see. Liam, astonished, asked her. She asked him, "You are giving a 5-year-old child a robot like this?" He replied, "It is very important to you." Suddenly his father entered and said, "And I also have a gift for you, my son." The child asked, "What is it?" His father answered, "I will grant you all the Banfield family possessions. Our entire planet will be yours." The child was astonished and said, "Are you serious? I am only 5 years old." His father replied, "Yes, but there is a simple condition. After I give you the planet, your mother and I will move to live in a distant villa. And all you need to do is send me a monthly allowance." The child had no awareness of power or authority and did not think about any of it. The man then brought out a contract and said, "Sign here." The child signed without reading a single line. Once he signed, the father took the contract and said, "Very well, let us live in peace." Then they left him alone. The young child did not even realize he had been easily deceived. But why did he not focus on those strange details? Because his attention was fixed on only one thing. "I will use my authority in this world, so that no one dares to harm me." He felt indebted to that opportunity given by the strange man. Yet he did not know that the man thrived on grief and suffering. And as soon as he saw the child would travel to the other world, he decided to leave him with a bit of torment before he arrived. The story returned to Micah and director Liam, who were sitting in a restaurant, laughing and enjoying themselves. The director said to her, "Honestly, I feel some guilt for ruining Liam's life. He was an honorable man." But Micah replied, laughing, "And why should you feel guilty? He deserves it. He wasted 10 years of my life." Suddenly, the police entered and surrounded the director, saying, "You are charged with fabricating an embezzlement case, and we have videos proving it, in addition to statements from some colleagues." The director tried to deny it, but everything was clear. As for Micah, the man she had depended on was now in prison, and she would sleep on the sidewalk, penniless, with no future. The strange man stood afar, enjoying every moment of the suffering he had caused. Only one thing remained: to transfer Liam's soul to the new world. But this time, he planned to make him suffer more than before. The strange man from the second world sat laughing a deep, diabolical laugh, intending to savor every moment of Liam's torment. Even worse, the inhabitants of this world lived extremely long lives, meaning Liam would suffer for centuries, not just years. Meanwhile, in another part of that world, an entire planet was under attack by phantom pirates. The pirate captain thought he had won the battle, but suddenly his men began exploding one by one. Amidst the chaos, a woman appeared in the air, commanding and terrifying. She was Christiana, the first princess of the sacred kingdom of Lee, and one of the most powerful warriors in the entire kingdom. As soon as Christiana entered the battlefield, the pirates began to fall one by one, and the army of the Kingdom of Lee started pushing them back. Yet, even after the pirates decided to retreat, Christiana commanded her soldiers, saying, "Continue the fight. We shall teach them a lesson that will be recorded in history." At that very moment, Liam received his new gift, his personal robot. He had not expected it to come inside a box resembling a children's doll. The servant said to him, "All you have to do is touch the box, and it will open automatically." Liam touched the box, and suddenly the robot fell gracefully to the ground before him and stood with utmost elegance, saying, "My name is Amagi, and from this moment onward, I am at your service, Your Excellency." The servant explained, "Amagi will be your personal assistant, serving you 24 hours a day, but she requires maintenance once a week." A few hours later, Liam was sitting while receiving a massage from Amagi. The servant cautiously remarked, "It seems I am not fond of your appearance." Liam laughed and replied, "Do not worry. I may appear to be 5 years old, but I have 36 years of experience." The servant was astonished. 36? And you are still an ordinary child, Amagi interjected. The normal lifespan here is approximately 600 years, and no one is considered an adult until they reach 50. Liam thought to himself, "Wonderful. A long life, more opportunities for adventure, and Amagi by my side at all times." Yet the servant warned him, "Be careful not to get too close to Amagi, for people here despise artificial intelligence." Liam, surprised, asked, "Why?" The servant replied, "In the past, artificial intelligence nearly annihilated humanity in a war called the Skynet War. They enslaved people and almost killed them all. But heroes rose against them and restored human freedom. These same heroes founded the current empire, so it is natural for the nobles here to harbor aversion toward anything related to artificial intelligence." Liam asked, "Then why did my mother give me a robot for my birthday?" The servant remained silent for a moment, then said, "I am ordering you now to tell me the truth." The servant replied honestly, "Your parents, they ran away." Liam asked in astonishment, "Ran away from what?" The servant answered, "They left you an inheritance, An inheritance of debts, no lands, no money, only endless debts. Liam was shocked. How is that possible? He asked. The servant continued. Your great-grandfather, Alistair, was a remarkable man, achieving many accomplishments and raising the Penfield family name high. But your father, he was a failure. When he took power, he destroyed rights, closed factories, vanished income, and now you are responsible for all of it. Liam thought to himself, I was not meant to enjoy life. This is just the beginning of my suffering. And the strange man continued to bring him ever greater calamities, while time stretched endlessly. Elsewhere, on the planet Hydra, some people sat in a bar, drinking and talking about the new lord who had become a 5-year-old child. One said, I cannot endure this place anymore. Every time a new lord arrives, the taxes rise for no reason. Another replied, we can do nothing now. Let us hope he is more merciful than the one before him. Meanwhile, Liam sat on his bed, his mind still struggling to process everything that had happened. He wondered how the Penfield lineage had sunk into poverty for years, only to suddenly place the entire burden upon a child. He pondered briefly, then realized they had deliberately positioned him to inherit these debts. In his previous life, his weakness had been exploited, and he had been left to suffer. But this time, he said to himself, I will not allow anyone to trample over me again. This world is mine. He looked at Amagi and said, it's just the two of us. No one loves us. Cooperate with me, and we will restore the territory to its feet. Amagi smiled and told him she was proud to serve him, for he had given meaning to her existence. Liam felt overwhelming joy. For the first time in his life, he felt he could trust someone sincerely. Before beginning his work, Liam decided to establish some laws and adjust Amagi's algorithm to ensure security. He said, the first law, Liam said, do not harm any human. Then he paused for a moment and thought to himself, wait, I do not really care much about humans. Forget what I said. The first law is, you must never harm Liam under any circumstance. He added, the second law, you must obey all my orders, unless doing so would harm me. And he continued, the third law, protect yourself without violating the first and second laws. Amagi's laws were defined, and the real work began. Liam said, why don't I restore the Banfield domain? Let's return it to its former glory. Do you have any ideas? Amagi answered after a quick analysis. I have a suggestion, but you must know that an AI's opinion does not always align with the Empire's way of thinking. Liam admitted frankly, I don't understand anything about this world. Amagi suggested using the education capsule, a device that injects 10 years' worth of knowledge into the brain in just 6 months, while also enhancing the body. Liam said, perfect. But who will manage the territory while I'm inside the capsule? Amagi replied, I am your proxy. I will govern the domain on your behalf until you return. The servant Brian intervened with shock. Have you lost your mind? Placing the entire domain in the hands of a robot? Liam answered calmly, Amagi will do nothing wrong unless I order her to, and there is no law preventing this, correct? Brian smiled in resignation and gave up. Finally, the capsule was ready. Before entering, Liam looked at Amagi and asked her, do you have emotions? Do you feel anything? Amagi hesitated before replying, I'm not certain. But when you asked me to be your partner, the system generated a sensation similar to human emotions. Liam laughed and said, all right, take care of the domain while I study. I will return to dominate the world. He entered the capsule, placing the future of Banfield entirely in the hands of his robot. After a while, the capsule opened, and he found Amagi waiting for him. He asked, how long was I inside the capsule? She answered, you were asleep for 2 years. After he dressed, Amagi sat down to explain the current state of the Banfield territory, informing him that everything was going smoothly. He thanked her for her efforts and said, I want to take a tour and see the domain with my own eyes. Amagi smiled and said, I will show you first the fleet of warships. It was the first time Liam had ever seen the territory with his own eyes rather than through images or reports, and what fascinated him most were the robots. He asked her, can I try one of them? Amagi was delighted and said, of course. I will prepare a test for you right away. Amagi explained to him that the suit moves automatically, and all he had to do was imagine the movement he wanted to perform, and the suit would execute it on its own. He said to her, very well, I shall try. He donned the suit, and the moment he activated it, he could walk in it with complete ease. Liam felt a surge of excitement and said, I want to try fighting while wearing it. Amagi surprised him. Do not worry. I will set up a training duel immediately. You are commanded. Shortly thereafter, the commander of the planet's special defense forces arrived, and the battle commenced. Amagi pushed a strike toward him, which he deflected, then pretended as if he had lost the encounter. Liam realized that he had been joking and not taking the exercise seriously. He grew angry and said to him, take this a little more seriously. Of course, he could not finish the training quickly, as Amagi was by his side every step of the way, providing support and assistance at all times. Liam faced another attack, but he managed to grasp his sword, only to fall to the ground instantly. He was shocked and could not comprehend how he had been defeated so swiftly. Amagi explained to him that the suit's movements are based on what the user imagines, and individuals with years of experience like the commander control it with precision. After this humiliation, Liam felt an intense fury and told his servant Brian, "Bring me a combat instructor immediately." Brian tried to calm him, saying, "Sir, there is no need to learn combat at all." But Liam was resolute. He could not accept the word no. In his previous life, he had been oppressed by those stronger than him, and he would not live the same way here. If he wished to be a powerful lord, he had to become strong. In a short span of time, Liam met a man named Yasushi, a skilled master in martial arts. Liam admired him at first sight and told him that he wished to learn from him. Yasushi agreed to be his instructor. However, Amagi felt uneasy and said, "I am not comfortable. Yasushi seems suspicious." Liam responded, "I know he seems suspicious, but he resembles a samurai, and I am drawn to his presence." Amagi then said to him, "Very well. Try it first before relying on it." Liam ignored her advice and asked Yasushi to give him a brief demonstration. Yasushi agreed and said, "Come with me to the forest." There he arranged some wooden pillars and, before beginning, said, "Focus carefully. This is a secret technique, and I will not repeat it in front of anyone." Liam said to Amagi, "Record everything that happens." Amagi began the recording. Yasushi took a stance, drew a part of his sword, and swiftly returned it. Suddenly, every surrounding pillar split perfectly in half. Liam was astonished. Unbelievable. "What speed is this?" He asked Amagi to play the video in slow motion to observe the move precisely. But no matter how much the video was slowed, there was no trace of the sword's motion. Liam realized the speed was incredible, far beyond what the camera could capture, and he was even more impressed. He immediately requested Yasushi to become his official instructor. At night, Yasushi returned alone to the forest, laughing. "Can you believe he fell for it? I had pre-cut the pillars and set them upright carefully, and when I moved my hand, the pillars simply fell." He was pleased, as he now received a respectable salary from Liam and had no intention of wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Princess Christiana was heading to meet Krasnojo to negotiate peace. However, he received her angrily. "You are far too foolish to come here alone." Christiana replied, "I did not come alone, and if you attempt anything, the entire Alliance fleet will destroy your ship." She tried to display her power through the red eye, yet Joe remained unafraid because he knew the Alliance was with him, not with her. Suddenly, a message reached her, stating that the Krasny had attacked her planet. Christiana was shocked, unable to comprehend how this happened. As her planet was well fortified and secure, Joe remarked, "Not all the alliances you made were loyal. Some accepted my offer and betrayed you." At that moment, Christiana's crew informed her that all Alliance ships had aimed their weapons at her vessel. She could not believe that Joe had managed to turn the tables on her and her entire army. Christiana had no choice but to obey Liam's orders. Meanwhile, on Liam's planet, he was still training with his instructor, Yasushi. He was utterly exhausted, yet he had failed to master the flash maneuver, the spectacular move that sent wooden objects soaring. Liam asked Amagi if there was a way to learn this technique. But as Amagi was an artificial intelligence, she was not particularly knowledgeable on the subject. 3 years passed while he trained with Yasushi on the fundamentals of swordsmanship. Liam began to feel bored with the repetition. Amagi informed him that he had become highly skilled in the basics, and his level had improved significantly compared to before. Yet this meant nothing to him. He desired to master a showy maneuver that would amaze people. In the evening, Yasushi sat in his room reading manga, unable to believe his fortune. He had landed a well-paying position, despite being a mediocre swindler with swords. For the past 3 years, he had been teaching Liam simple moves and receiving a hefty salary for it. Liam wished that this situation would last all his life. Suddenly, Liam entered the room and announced that he wanted to learn the flash maneuver. Yasushi became furious, reminding him that he had promised from the start to teach that move only once, and if Liam was dissatisfied, there would be no reason to continue as his instructor. Liam bowed and expressed his apologies. Yasushi said, "Very well, I will forgive you this time, but be careful not to make the same mistake again." As soon as Liam left the room, Yasushi exhaled in relief, fearing that Liam would discover that he was a fraud and did not truly know how to perform the move. Yet suddenly, Liam returned. Yasushi's heart trembled with fear, assuming Liam had come to uncover the truth. In reality, Liam had come only to inform him that there would be no training the following day, as he had a mission on the other side. On the other side, Princess Christiana was a captive of Krasnojo, confined in her room. She asked him, "Do you truly intend to harm me?" He did not answer, merely insisting that she observe the scene from the front row. Christiana did not understand Joe's intentions until she saw him. He ordered all the ships to aim their cannons at her planet. At that moment, Christiana realized that he intended to destroy it. She sat crying and pleaded, "Stop! Don't do this!" But it was too late. Joe commanded his men to open fire, and Christiana was forced to watch her planet explode before her eyes. On Liam's planet, he remained frustrated and unable to master the flash maneuver, yet he understood that he must focus on his duties as a lord. He requested the monthly report from Amagi, who presented him with a chart and statistics showing the state of the planet's economy. The debts remained, but production was beginning to improve. Liam felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing he had entrusted the administration to Amagi, who worked conscientiously. However, she warned him that growth was slower than expected, as a significant portion of funds had been spent on entertainment projects. Yet the results did not match the investment of money and time. Liam requested a detailed report on the funds allocated to the entertainment program, along with the accounting years he had studied before his previous death. Finally, he obtained the results directly and immediately detected a flaw. He summoned the program manager. Shortly thereafter, a man hurried in. Liam calmly addressed him. "If you have something to say, speak now." The nobleman attempted to feign ignorance, pretending not to understand, but Liam had already uncovered him. He realized that the man had been embezzling funds from the program. The nobleman had been cleverly manipulating invoices to cover his theft, but Liam was no naive pupil. He had seen disasters before and recognized the schemes instantly. Additionally, Liam discovered that the nobleman had changed the suppliers he worked with. Liam asked directly, "Why did you change the suppliers?" The nobleman tried to convince him that the new supplier was better, but if that had been true, the program's results would have been far superior. In short, it was evident from head to toe that the nobleman was nothing but a deceitful thief. Curiously, Liam was not enraged. He had come to this world to become an evil lord, and he understood that he must learn to wield his position effectively. Suddenly, Amagi informed him that there had indeed been an embezzlement case previously filed against the nobleman. Liam was astonished that the man still held his position. The nobleman claimed that the case had been closed, and that one of his subordinates had been accused of embezzlement in his place. Liam asked Amagi if this was true, and she confirmed it, although there was no clear evidence proving the employee's guilt. Worse yet, the nobleman had executed that man. At that moment, Liam understood the cunning of the game. He accused the nobleman of fabricating the charges against the unfortunate man and killing him to conceal his crimes. The nobleman tried to deny everything, but Liam could see the lies radiating from his eyes. He grasped his sword and began advancing toward him calmly, as if death itself were approaching step by step. The noble realized that deception would not help, so he began to plead, saying, "My lord, everyone here does this. We are not the only villains. All nobles steal, and this is normal." No sooner had he uttered these words than Liam drew his sword, ready to behead him, but Amagi shouted. The noble screamed as well, "You are still young. You do not understand how the world works." But before he could finish, Liam had already severed his head with the sword, his fury ignited beyond endurance. He immediately ordered Amagi to investigate the corruption of all the nobles and present it to him, but Amagi calmed him, advising that he must act with caution first. This was the first time Liam had killed a human, and he was so tense that he could not release the sword from his hand, forcing Amagi to help him loosen his grip with strength. Regarding his order to execute all the corrupt nobles, Amagi informed him that if he did so, no one would remain to govern the planet, as most nobles here were corrupt. She suggested that he deploy a number of robot servants to manage the planet in their place. Liam trusted her judgment and approved the plan. After a short while, Liam returned to the training area. Now a master of the fundamentals of swordsmanship, he decided to train again with the combat suit. But before he could don the suit, Yasushi suddenly appeared and said, "Do not dream of becoming a powerful warrior while training with an automated suit." Liam asked Amagi, "Is there not another suit I can use?" She replied that there was a fully manual suit, but no one had ever been able to use it before. The truth was that Yasushi had invented this lie. He had begun to worry that Liam had truly become a professional swordsman, and if he developed further, Yasushi's position as a swindler would end. While searching the royal family's storage, he found a broken combat robot and decided to trick Liam into training on it, confident that a child like Liam could never control it. Indeed, Yasushi's plan succeeded. The idea took root in Liam's mind, and he was intrigued. Liam challenged himself in theory. He thought that if he could master the manual suit, he would gain an enormous advantage over anyone using the automated suits across the galaxy, and this training could greatly enhance his power. But before beginning, he needed someone to repair the robot. Brian felt delighted to see Liam so deeply focused on his training. Yet he could not understand why Liam wanted to begin with a manual robot that was extremely difficult to control. He was also puzzled by the way Liam kept striking a wooden post for several days without showing the slightest hint of boredom, so he asked him about it. Liam replied simply, "I am trying to imitate the secret technique that Yasushi is teaching me, and I will not stop until I master it, even if it takes years." Brian could not believe that such a technique even existed, but he realized that trying to convince Liam it was a trick would be pointless. That night, Amagi went to the loading area to prepare her request, for although she believed Yasushi's advice was unnecessary, she remained committed to her duties. The problem was that Amagi was not qualified to repair the robot herself, so the following day they summoned a specialized expert named Nias. When Liam and Amagi arrived at the port, Nias began acting strangely toward Amagi, while Liam expected that someone from the Empire would feel uncomfortable seeing the robot. Yet the opposite was entirely true. Nias showed excessive enthusiasm and great interest in the electronic devices. Liam asked Nias to repair the robot, and she told him frankly that it was completely damaged and that buying a newer model would be far better. However, she eventually yielded to his insistence on repairing it, even though spare parts for that model were no longer manufactured, and the cost would be high. Liam, however, did not hesitate to cover the expenses. Before the repairs began, Liam insisted on adding an offensive move to the robot, a powerful technique resembling a rocket punch in which the arm would launch outward to strike the enemy. But he listened to Nias's advice when she explained that the idea was impractical, since the engines would require enormous space, and losing the arm during combat would be dangerous. In the end, they agreed on a reasonable modification. While everyone was talking about the greatness of robots, Yasushi stood at a distance, unable to believe that Nias admired Liam more than him. Perhaps it was because Liam was genuinely likable. Unlike the jealous failure who stood watching from afar, determined to get back at him, Yasushi decided to subject Liam to harsh training. He made him stand on a tree trunk in the middle of the lake and began striking him with flying spheres, pretending that he was trying to awaken his sense for incoming attacks without looking directly, though all of it was empty nonsense. Meanwhile, on another planet, Christiana was being held captive along with her crew after Joe had abducted them, and she was struggling to comprehend the complicated situation she had been thrown into. As events unfolded in multiple places at once, Joe was overjoyed as he humiliated Christiana. When she asked him what he intended to do with her, he smiled wickedly and said, "I will take you with me to the planet, my private treasure, and you will become part of my collection." Christiana thought he was plotting something indecent, but when she arrived at the laboratory, she discovered that the truth was 1,000,000 times more horrifying. At that moment, she wished it were merely a matter of insolence. Before her eyes unfolded a ghastly scene. One of her colleagues had been transformed into a grotesque creature as a result of the experiments conducted by a mad scientist under Joe's command. Joe ordered the scientist, "Take Christiana. I want you to begin as usual." Christiana trembled in terror. Having witnessed firsthand the fate that awaited her, Joe had countless dark experiments planned, and he intended to apply them to her. His initial plan was to gouge out her eye with his hand, then fix it in her palm. And why? So she would be able to see her own body twisting and breaking before her, just as he had done to others. She was about to endure the worst nightmare of her life. Meanwhile, on Liam's planet, the situation was flourishing. Under Liam's rule, the economy had improved significantly, and people were living with a happiness they had never imagined. Everyone was eager to see what Liam would do next to further advance the planet. Yet what no one knew was that Liam had drained a substantial portion of the planet's budget to repair his manual robot. Finally, Nias completed the repairs, restoring the robot as if it had just emerged from the factory. She was proud of her accomplishment and eager to show Liam how to operate it. The cockpit inside the robot had been slightly expanded to allow more comfort. As soon as Liam entered and was properly secured, Nias activated the engine. It started immediately and conducted a scan to register Liam as the official new pilot, meaning no one else could operate it. Liam was extremely eager to test the robot, but the moment he grabbed the control unit, he fell face first. He had forgotten that this robot lacked an automatic balance feature, and each step required manual adjustment. For any ordinary person, control would have been impossible. Yet Liam had trained precisely for this moment, and he managed to adjust his posture and stand once more. He exited the loading area, with people gazing at him in profound admiration. For a first attempt, his command of the robot appeared astonishing. Nias explained that imagination was a crucial element in operating this type of robot. The clearer the image in his mind, the more precise the robot's movements became. Soon after, Liam returned to training with his sword, attempting once again to perform the flash technique by cutting the wooden post from a distance, just as he always tried to do. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not succeed. Doubt began to creep into his heart. Perhaps I do not possess the talent for swordsmanship as I once believed. Amagi approached him and said, "The problem is neither you nor your talent. The problem lies with Yasushi and his teaching filled with nonsense, as well as your blind faith in him." But Liam misunderstood the word faith. He thought she meant that he did not believe in his teacher enough. He was utterly convinced that Yasushi could never lie to him nor make a mistake. So he reached a strange conclusion. Then the problem is that I do not understand the master's lessons well enough. Suddenly he remembered that this world contained magic. He said to himself, "Very well, I will use magic together with the strike instead of relying on my muscles alone." And with that, Liam made a great leap forward in his training. From that day on, Liam spent long months training to combine swordsmanship with magic, until the awaited day finally arrived. He called out to Yasushi and said, "Master, come and see how far I have come." Deep down, Yasushi was certain that Liam would disappoint him as usual. But the moment Liam drew his sword, he unleashed a magical wave that split the wooden post in half from a distance. Yasushi could not believe what he was seeing, but he quickly put on the mask of wisdom and said, "Well done, my student. But you still have much to master before you can truly perfect the technique." After witnessing Liam cut the wooden post, Yasushi's expression flipped entirely in shock, and terror began to fill his heart. "This boy is not normal. I have been lying to him all these years, and yet he managed to achieve the impossible." Days passed until a grave report reached him. One of the planets that supplied him with resources had come under attack by pirates. It was the only planet the Empire did not seize when it confiscated the Benfield family's assets due to debt, for its land was of very poor quality, and extracting minerals from it was extremely difficult. They simply said, "We have no need for it." But Amagi was skilled, and she managed to get some factories running again, providing Liam with additional income. And now the pirates were attempting to seize those factories. The Benfield forces stationed on the planet were resisting, but it was clear that it was only a matter of time before they were completely crushed. So Liam asked, "Amagi, do you have a plan for the assault?" She answered, "Yes. We will enter through a blind spot they would never expect and surprise them." Liam admired the plan and commanded his army to hold the Cardassians in the upper orbit while he descended himself to defend the planet. Brian attempted to object. "My lord, it is too dangerous for you to go personally." But Liam refused. "No one will ever steal from me again, and besides, I want to show them the new skills I have learned." Indeed, Liam arrived with his battalion, and Amagi had prepared a massive cannon in which Liam's robot was placed. As soon as the cannon was ready, they launched it toward the planet's surface. The Cardassians were completing the destruction of the factory protection army when suddenly one of their ships exploded. They looked around and saw Liam falling from the sky, his sword cleaving one of them in half in an instant. The Cardassians began to run and spread out to surround him, but Liam used the training he had acquired from the tennis balls Yasushi had thrown at him. He sensed their movement without seeing them and cut down those who approached from behind before they could reach him. Then a group of Cardassians began firing lasers at him. Liam said, "Very well. I also know how to fire lasers." He set aside his sword, summoned a massive laser cannon, and began clearing the battlefield. The Cardassians panicked. "This is not a human. This is a phantom." They tried to attack him collectively, but they lined up foolishly. Liam said, "It is time for my true secret." He drew his sword, and suddenly a wave sliced through half the army. The rest fell to the ground in terror, screaming, "No, no, we cannot withstand him." Those who managed to flee ran madly, but Liam had no intention of letting them escape. He raised his hand and unleashed the rocket punch. However, instead of his arm detaching and flying toward them as intended, he summoned a nuclear fist that annihilated everyone on the battlefield. Liam stood frowning and said angrily, "This is not what I ordered. Neas, I asked for a rocket fist, not a nuclear bomb, woman." At that moment, he received a call from Amagi, who informed him, apologetically, that she had managed to destroy 30% of the pirate fleet, seize another 30% of their ships to build a new army, while the remaining 40% had escaped to Marad. Liam smiled and said calmly, "You have done an excellent job, Amagi." On the other side, news reached Joe that the pirates he had sent to Penfield's resource planet had failed in their mission, and his rage was so intense that he nearly tore his clothes in fury. The reports claimed that the squad had underestimated the strength of the Penfield army and had been forced to retreat to avoid total annihilation. Although this explanation seemed reasonable to others, Joe was not prepared to let it slide. He decided to exact vengeance upon every single pirate who had returned and fled, for he would not tolerate a coward among his men, and those who feared deserved no life. Once he had dealt with them all, he intended to carry out the mission personally. Meanwhile, Leon and his legendary team were returning from the battle. Elated with the outcome, not only had they succeeded in protecting the resource planet, but they had also captured several pirate ships. According to Imperial law, anything seized from a pirate ship, both the vessel itself and its cargo, became the rightful property of the captor. Fortune favored them, as the captured ships were filled with stolen treasures. Upon hearing the word treasures, Leon's mind immediately drifted to thoughts of gold and silver, but Brian informed him that what they had was far more valuable. After inspecting the ships, Amji reported that they had discovered rare metals such as orichalcum and adamantite. However, Leon paid little attention, as these metals were primarily used for weapon making, whereas he dreamed of something akin to a diamond-encrusted crown. Brian could not understand his displeasure, for in this world, diamonds were merely shiny stones of little value, while orichalcum and adamantite were far more precious. Yet, as mentioned, Leon did not care. He only desired something that would make him feel wealthy. When Brian informed him that there was also some gold aboard the ships, Leon rejoiced and instructed him to mint a vast quantity of gold coins. Brian asked if he also wanted coins made from the other metals, but Leon refused. He was not foolish enough to squander them, intending instead to use them to manufacture weapons for the army. At that moment, Amji pointed out a major problem. There was no skilled blacksmith they could rely on. Furthermore, the Penfield army had approximately 10,000 ships, but upon inspection, they discovered that most were non-operational. When orders to mobilize against the pirates were given, only 30% of the fleet could take off and participate in the battle. Amji was astonished that they had emerged victorious at all, given that only 30% of the fleet had been operational. Yet, victory was achieved because the pirates had underestimated them. The rest of the empire considered Penfield to be poor, assuming the attack would be easy. Had it not been for Leon's exceptional leadership, the situation could have turned completely against them. Nevertheless, if the pirates had decided to launch a full-scale assault, Penfield would have had no chance of winning under these circumstances. Despite all this, Leon was not pleased. More than 70% of the ships were damaged. Then Amji proposed an idea. She suggested disposing of the completely broken ships. Brian immediately objected, arguing that removing those ships would lower the army's ranking and make them appear as easy prey. Which was true, but repairing the ships would cost an enormous amount, and Leon did not want to pay it. The army managed to purchase new ships to replace those to be discarded, and if they sold the precious metals obtained from the Karasne, the funds would be more than sufficient elsewhere. Nias felt immense pride in her new ship design, having succeeded in increasing its efficiency by 7%, improving its responsiveness, and facilitating maintenance. She promised that if the army adopted her design, their fleet would become significantly stronger. The next presentation came from Ulysses, representing the third weapons factory. She presented a luxurious ship design, akin to a high-end cruise ship. Its interior and exterior resembled a 5-star hotel, equipped with all amenities, a bar, theater, cinema, and even an indoor golf course. Nias's ship, while stronger in combat, lacked these comforts, such as the golf course, which led the Imperial Army to choose Ulysses' design. Instead, Nias objected, claiming her ship was far superior, as it focused all resources on enhancing combat capabilities. Ulysses countered, stating that her ship's power was not lesser in battle, and that strength relied not solely on weaponry, but also on the crew managing the vessel. A well-rested crew, comfortable after a long day, would be ready to fight with full vigor. After the presentation, Ulysses left, elated and triumphant at the army's choice of her design over Nias. Yet Nias told her the game was not over. She might have lost this round, but she would prove her design's superiority in actual combat. The problem was that Nias had spent her entire budget. If she could not find a buyer for the ships the army had rejected, she would go bankrupt. While pondering this, an idea struck her. She recalled someone insane enough to purchase them. This man was Leon, who had been willing to pay a vast sum to repair an old robot. Surely he could afford to buy the ships that nobody else wanted. Meanwhile, the mentor amused himself by playing pranks on people, deriving pleasure from their suffering. Yet what he witnessed now could not compare to the true agony that Leon had endured. The last time he saw him, the New World had sent him to the people of Zabala, who dumped debts upon him and fled. His planet was supposed to have been destroyed and erased from the map, yet the surprise was that it had become a thriving world, with life proceeding in the best possible way. The guide was deeply puzzled, yet he still held on to his final card. In the past, when Liam had requested a sword instructor, the guide sent him a fraud named Yasushi, a man who did not even know how to hold a sword. There had been no real way for Liam to learn anything from him. But inside the tavern, the locals were speaking about the flourishing economy under Liam's rule, and how everyone had become happy with his governance. As for Yasushi, he sat alone, depressed and annoyed with Liam. He knew he was a swindler, and he knew he had tried to get Liam killed by giving him impossible tasks. Yet Liam had actually learned and mastered techniques that even Yasushi himself had never heard of. When the guide overheard this, he was shocked. He agreed to Amji's suggestion, but only to put Brian at ease. She told him that so he decided to go observe Liam himself. There he found Liam in the middle of training, splitting wooden targets without even touching them. The guide was stunned, because he was certain that he had never granted Liam any supernatural power. How could he reach all of this purely through his own effort and hard work? The guide simply could not comprehend how everything in Liam's life was going so well. What made it even stranger was that even Liam himself had never expected such fortune. At 5 years old, he had been abandoned alone while his family drowned him in debt, an ordeal that should have destroyed the life of any human being. Yet somehow, everything unfolded perfectly. The economy in his territory was improving. Liam was living the dream, and all of it was thanks to the guide himself. The positivity radiating from Liam made life taste bitter in the guide's mouth. He could not bear it anymore, so he returned to feed on Yasushi's negative energy just to calm down a little, and he began planning a new scheme to destroy Liam's life. Liam was at the peak now, and pushing him off from the top, that was what would truly satisfy the guide. At that very moment, Liam was speaking with Amji regarding the ships. He asked her if she had found anything useful. Amji told him that the Imperial Army was upgrading its fleet and selling its old ships at a cheap price. Although they were old models, Imperial ships were still stronger than anything else on the market. Liam agreed immediately, but there was a condition. If he purchased the ships, he had to accept employing their old crew as they were. In other words, the Empire was simply trying to get rid of the personnel it no longer wanted and dump them all onto Liam. Hiring all those soldiers would surely cost a fortune, but Amji believed that with their actual budget, they could handle the expenses, especially since most of the crew members from the Imperial fleet possessed extensive experience. Their presence would strengthen Liam's army even more, and when Liam heard that, he accepted the idea and agreed to the deal. The guide had been listening to everything, and he saw this as a golden opportunity to destroy Liam's life. He decided to play his game and send a group of extremely serious people. Among the soldiers heading to Liam, there were some who were overly loyal, and he was certain that Liam, who called himself the Evil Lord, would be exposed in front of them and they would turn against him. Meanwhile, Yasushi was sitting in his house with a pounding headache from all the drinking, unable to understand how his life had reached this point. But suddenly, he heard Nias's voice. So he quickly stood up and returned to acting the role of the Wokor teacher. Nias had doubted him at first, but after she saw how much she had improved under his guidance, she became convinced that he must be a dangerous master. Yasushi was surprised that she came alone. He thought there might be some kind of opportunity with her or something, but she had only come to ask a few questions about Liam, nothing more. She and Mez wanted to know how to make Liam listen to their marketing offer without appearing in a bad way. So she asked Yasushi, in a roundabout way, how to make a man be in a good death. Yasushi misunderstood her, of course. He thought she was trying to seduce him, but he was afraid she might see him as too close to dying. But Nias kept begging him because she truly needed to know how to win Liam to her side. After seeing her like that, he opened his heart and began telling her all his fantasies. Things that were completely twisted upon twisted. Nias stood silent, unable to respond from the shock, and Yasushi began to worry that he might have said too much. Strangely, she sincerely thanked him for the advice. A few hours later, she arrived at Liam's palace, hoping to charm Liam and make him buy her ships. Liam might be kind and soft-hearted at times, but he was not stupid. He immediately understood she was trying to sell him something. She told him honestly that she wanted him to buy the new model of warships she had personally designed, but he refused without even listening to the details. So she pleaded with him to at least hear her out first. He replied that he had already bought some used ships from the army, then asked her what benefit her new ships offered. She tried to convince him with numbers and statistics, assuring him that the ships were strong in their design, and although she was convinced, she had never tried selling them to the army. Having failed at the previous exhibition where no one bought anything, he asked her whether she would buy even a single ship or 200 ships. She replied that she could assist and obtain a loan if she wanted. He answered, "Enough talk. I cannot bear thinking about debts again. Nias began to feel nervous about his behavior and tried to entice him in an emotional way, but he knew that Yasushi was not that type. It seemed that her stance had broken her heart. So to end this strange moment, he agreed to purchase some ships. He asked Amagi if there was a sufficient budget, and she replied that they could buy around 300 ships. Nias felt immense happiness and promised to send the ships immediately, beginning to excite her team by saying, "Prepare 300 ships at once for sale." The coordinator was surprised when he learned that she had already found a buyer for the ships. She confidently said, "This is all thanks to her brilliant design." After several hours, the new ships were delivered to their buyer, and when they arrived, Liam and Amagi boarded one to assess the situation. Liam was pleased that he had obtained the latest models and immediately understood why the Empire had chosen other models instead of these. The ship contained no luxury at all. Nias defended her design, insisting that luxury was unnecessary in combat, which was true, but humans also appreciated comfort. To complete the transaction, Nias requested Liam's signature on the delivery receipt, but she wanted to ask for something else. She inquired whether she could obtain some of the Corsair ships he had recently seized, but he refused immediately, stating that he intended to integrate them into his fleet. They tried to persuade him, but he remained firm. Nias proposed a compromise. They could provide her with a single ship on the condition that she modify the rest of the Corsair ships to integrate with Liam's system, because Corsair ship technology was very strange, coming from outside the Empire, and it had to be adapted to work with the fleet. He agreed immediately, as the modification was far less costly than extracting the technical information from the foreign technology. When Liam asked about the matter, Nias suggested they go see one of the Corsair ships themselves. The three went together, and the ship's appearance was completely different from any ships Liam was accustomed to. The team reacted with great enthusiasm. They said the ship was a technological treasure, full of ideas and technology that could be copied, and Liam was also pleased, especially when he saw a massive steering wheel in the center of the control room. He admired it and requested one to be installed on his ship, but she informed him that while its appearance was beautiful, its use was less efficient than the digital panel, and that controlling the screen was much faster and easier. Liam was not interested in the overall appearance of the ship. To him, it seemed merely a tool. Meanwhile, Nias preferred to roam its corridors in wonder, and with every passing moment, she was more astonished by the advanced technology it contained. She exclaimed in a voice full of amazement that the gravity laser system here operated at an extraordinary range, that there were inverted generators, and even the 6 GTI engines were installed in an astonishing manner. She could not wait and returned to start analyzing all the available data. During her tour, Liam noticed something resembling a dog standing in a corner. He approached to examine it, and at one moment it behaved strangely. Amagi asked him, "Are you all right, my son?" He replied, "I saw a dog or a cat here, but it disappeared suddenly." It became clear that it had entered through a specific door, so they headed to the room the creature had entered and discovered that it was the ship's navigation or sonar system room. Amagi activated the system and explained that this room recorded all the ship's voyages, and she had previously used it to track maps. From the data, it became clear that the Corsairs had been seizing planets across the entire Drain Empire, which was expected. After focusing on the data, Amagi discovered a strange pattern. Every time the Corsairs conducted a raid, they returned to the Empire via the transit gate, then made a small jump to the borders. This region had, for years, been the scene of conflicts between the Empire and other forces, making it extremely difficult to monitor, and an ideal base for the Corsairs. Liam asked for the coordinates of the small jump, but she told him they changed every time the Corsairs returned from their raid. Amagi began analyzing the coordinates she had obtained, mapping the ship's route, and discovered that it corresponded to a small wandering planet deep in space, following an irregular path, making it nearly impossible to reach without knowing its location in advance. Amagi said she suspected this might be the Corsair's secret base, but he replied confidently, No, I've watched plenty of Corsair films. This planet is definitely a treasure island, and they store all their loot there." After gathering the necessary information, Liam asked her, "What do you intend to do now?" He asked her, and she answered without hesitation, "We will attack the planet." At that moment, the Corsairs returned from the stars, preparing for the battle against Liam. Their leader, Joe, was on the verge of exploding from rage, shouting at his men, How could a weak noble mock us and turn us into a laughingstock before the entire galaxy? He cannot be allowed to survive. Then he ordered all his men to prepare for battle, adding, target the entire Benfield region. But before that, he wanted to teach the Corsairs who had failed him a lesson they would never forget. So he locked them inside a capsule and detonated it in front of everyone. Liam immediately returned with his fleet to attack the treasure planet, but to reach it, they had to pass through the Domus Gate, which was supposed to transport them to the Balmanea Gate, from where they would continue their journey. They requested passage authorization, but the request was denied. Liam asked for the reason, and Neas answered, "Our request was rejected because we did not pay the transit fee." Suddenly, they received a call from a gate employee addressing Liam directly. "Sir, the fee is calculated based on the fleet's weight and the distance it will travel, and since you intend to move the entire fleet, the cost becomes extremely high." Liam said, "Very well, I will pay, but I do not have money on me now. I will pay you when I return." The employee replied coldly, "No, sir, that is not possible. House Benfield's account in the bank is at zero, and even the fast loan companies do not wish to deal with you." Liam accepted that the fee must be paid first, or there must be someone trustworthy to guarantee the process. Only then could it proceed. But unfortunately, no one trusted House Benfield. Liam said, "Pay you when I return," and the employee replied, "There is no guarantee that you will return at all." Liam could have returned home to bring the money, but that would cost him great amounts of fuel and time. So he said, "Bring your manager so we may speak with him." The employee informed him that he himself was the manager. So Liam said, "Fine, I will come in person." Amagi looked at him and said, "Are you sure? If the manager refuses you while speaking comfortably on the phone, he will not agree even if he sees your face." Liam answered her confidently, "Do not worry. I have extraordinary negotiation skills. He will agree." Meanwhile, Joe arrived with his fleet at the Balmanea Gate, intending to use it to travel to the Domus Gate and then attack the Benfield region and erase it from existence. His entire fleet stopped at the edge, and Joe contacted the employee and offered him bribes to avoid excessive questioning. As for Liam, he was standing at the Domus Gate counter, attempting to convince the manager to allow his ships to pass, but the manager insisted on his stance. "No money, no passage. Rules are rules, and I cannot alter them for your sake." Suddenly, he received a message from the Balmanea Gate, stating that Joe and the Corsair fleet were approaching. The manager looked up and said coldly, "I have matters more important before me," and he left Liam standing in the reception hall. Liam could not believe how his extraordinary negotiation skills had failed. He continued talking to himself while following the spirit of the dog he had noticed earlier. It led him into the room the dog had entered, and he was surprised to find it was the ship and gate control room. Inside the control room, the manager and Farouk verified that the connection between the Domes and Balmanea gates was functioning fully, meaning Joe would be able to pass through the distance, and he was supposed to arrive in exactly 30 minutes. One of the employees asked, "Are you sure about what we are doing? This means Joe's fleet will appear before Liam's fleet in the waiting area." It was known that Joe would not wait a single second and would attack immediately upon arrival, while the manager remained tense, unable to see what lay ahead, and ordered them to take a break, for without their presence, they could not have acted in the critical moment. By coincidence, after everyone left the control room, Liam was following the spirit of the dog and found the control room empty of staff. He approached the screen and noticed that the gate was indeed open and connected to Balmanea. He said to himself, "My God, it seems the manager's heart softened and opened the way for me for free." But when focusing, he noticed that the direction of the Dodi market was wrong, so he concluded, "A small mistake by the manager. I will correct it myself." He began manipulating the controls, trying to reverse the gate's direction himself. After several attempts, he succeeded, but the adjustment caused an unintended distortion in the gate, so anyone inside the Dodi market would emerge in a completely random location. He accepted the gate modification despite the unintended distortion, as everyone inside the Dodi market would exit in a completely random spot. But since Liam was unaware anyone was inside, he said, "It does not matter." Suddenly, he received a call from Amagi saying, "Return to the ship quickly. I have found someone to guarantee us." Liam was surprised to learn who it was, and when he returned, he realized it was Neas, who felt that the least she could do was help, especially after he had saved her when he purchased her ships and left her some of the Corsair ships as well. Liam thanked her sincerely and said, "Fine, I have prepared the gate in advance. Let us move." Indeed, the fleet began to move, and after half an hour, they arrived at Balmanea. Only a short jump remained to reach the wandering planet and begin the mission. As for Joe, he was still trapped inside the Dodi market, unaware of Liam's trick on him. After a long while, he began to suspect something was wrong. Suddenly, the crew informed him, "Boss, we are approaching the exit of the gate," Joe smiled, saying, "Finally." But the moment they exited, he was shocked to find his fleet placed within the Imperial Fleet training area, in front of more than 100,000 ships, a disaster not to be underestimated. No one asked about them. At the same time, Liam arrived at the planet and ordered everyone to prepare themselves and begin the attack immediately. There were about 20,000 Corsair ships, more than 3 times Liam's fleet, but most were stationary and unprepared, so the sudden assault wiped them out quickly. Some ships attempted to respond, but Liam activated his robot and stood on a massive weapon aboard his ship, telling Magi, "Strike toward the heart of the battle." Indeed, he rushed to the center of the fight, eliminating the Corsairs one by one until all sounds of resistance ceased completely. When he saw that the battle was nearly over, he ordered his army to clean up the remaining forces while he went to search for the treasure himself. He entered the planet's core and encountered some Corsairs, wasting no time in dispatching them. When he reached his team's captain, he found that Liam had completed the mission alone. The captain informed him that they had also eliminated the Corsairs in their area. Liam commanded everyone to finish clearing the path while he proceeded to locate the treasure room. Suddenly, he saw the glowing dog again and decided to follow it. And this decision proved wise, as it led him to the control room where the scientist and his men surrendered immediately. Liam was pleased that the plan had succeeded completely and asked about the treasure's location. The scientist replied, "Which type of treasure would you like me to deal with first?" It contained highly valuable items as well as pets collected by Joe, and Liam thought that the dog he had seen might be one of these animals. He asked about the animals further, and the scientist, who was sadistic by nature and enjoyed turning humans into pets, began demonstrating his training methods for taming the animals and making them obedient. Liam did not understand a word of his explanation. He forcibly dragged himself into the laboratory, where the specimens he had been working on showed girls transformed into grotesque monsters. Due to his experiments, Nias continued observing the situation. Alone, his eyes fell on one of them. The scientist said to him, "Your eyes are keen. This is Captain Joe's favorite, and I will begin rambling about it as my artistic masterpiece, and I am proud of it." Liam's face twisted as he recalled his dark days when he treated humans as less than human. Unable to bear seeing someone torturing others like this, he drew his gun and fired it into the scientist's head. "And if you do not remember who she was, let me remind you, she was Christiana." After that, Liam began looking around when suddenly he heard a voice coming from her asking him, "Who are you?" Liam replied, "I am Liam. I have seized control of this planet and killed the one who was in charge of it." The girl's eyes filled with tears, and she said that her torment would finally come to an end. She begged him to end her suffering and the suffering of the others, for they would never live as normal humans again. He told her, "I will help you. It is simple. In return, you will repay this favor later." He walked out while ordering the soldiers to bring doctors and take the girls onto the ship for treatment. The girl kept screaming, begging him to kill her, knowing she was already lost. The captain tried to calm her down, but he could not disobey Liam's orders. He attempted to convince Liam to reconsider, telling him that the treatment was extremely difficult, requiring full bodily reconstruction, rare materials, and highly skilled doctors, and that it was simply not worth the trouble. But Liam replied, "I am in a good mood, and it wouldn't hurt to do some good from time to time." At that moment, he received a message from Amaj telling him that they had found the real treasure room. Liam was delighted and said, "Good, now we have the funds to treat the girls." Returning to the present time, Liam went back to his planet, and Nias came to visit him. She already knew he had triumphed over the pirate base and told him to buy some additional warships as a form of celebration. Liam told her, "Stop the scamming already. You're just robbing my money." But Nias insisted that her ships had proven useful and that he had earned a lot from the attack, so he needed to invest properly. She tried to seduce him again, but Liam was in no mood and had no intention of falling into her traps. He told her, "Be quiet." When seduction and threats failed, Nias reminded him that she was the one who had secured for him the authorization to enter the space gate, so he agreed to listen to her request. He asked Amaj, "With our current treasure, how many ships can we buy?" Amaj replied, "After subtracting the essential expenses, we can buy around 5,000 ships." Liam was shocked, but Nias immediately rushed forward, saying, "Perfect. I'll prepare an order for 5,000 ships." Liam ran after her, trying to catch her before this madness turned into reality. Meanwhile, Yasushi was walking through the corridors. He was thinking of a new idea to ask for money from Liam, and by chance, he saw Nias passing by, speaking on the phone, saying that she had requested a massive order after she had been humiliated and exhausted herself completely, as usual. Yasushi assumed that Liam was treating it like a game, and from that anger, he felt an unexpected thrill, something the mentor had been waiting for, hoping he would drown in negative emotions. At that moment, he was still searching for Nias, but Yasushi found her first. He said, "Follow me," and led her to the training grounds. There, he covered his eyes and placed weight on his sword to enter an impossible type of training. This time, Yasushi unleashed dozens of drones, firing tennis balls at Liam from all directions at speeds faster than ever. Liam could not even react in time to block them and was hit repeatedly on the head. Then Yasushi increased the force even more, knocking Liam to the ground. Liam shouted, "I cannot block all these strikes with a single sword." Yasushi replied coldly, "Stop making excuses. You must find the solution yourself." These words ignited an idea in Liam's mind. He decided to use magic as he had before, but this time defensively. The magic transformed into a barrier, which immediately succeeded in deflecting all the tennis balls away from him. Yasushi stood astonished before Liam, then returned the balls toward the drones, destroying them all with a single strike. Afterwards, Liam removed the cover from his eyes and cast a sharp glance at Yasushi. "That's better, Yasushi," he said. Yasushi's tense face began to twist with stress and hallucinations. He was a genius and would soon discover the truth. If exposed, his corrupt officers would kill the legends he had defeated among the Corsairs and erase him from existence. He decided to flee before Liam understood the entire game. Liam asked, "Where are you going?" Yasushi replied, "I have taught you all that I know, and there is nothing more to say. You must now train in your own way. The path of the sword is endless, my son." Liam shouted, "I am not done yet. I still need training." Yasushi retorted angrily, "Stop pampering me. I am still learning too, and my path is long. Clinging to me will only slow me down." Then he turned to Liam seriously and said, "Consider this officially. You have graduated. You are now a master in the path of the sword, and your responsibility is to spread the blink technique throughout the galaxy." Liam smiled and said, "Very well, I will do it." As soon as Yasushi turned, he sped away at maximum velocity. Liam had never felt such satisfaction in his life. His debts were reduced, his lands flourished, he had defeated some Corsairs, and his mentor's recognition filled him with pride. He raised his eyes to the sky and said, "Thank you, mentor, for everything." However, the mentor, feeling the overwhelming surge of positive energy emanating from Liam, feared he might collapse, and he ran away before the tidal wave of energy could engulf him. Liam now faced a new challenge. He had arrived in this world determined to become an evil leader. Yet since his arrival, he had not committed a single act of evil. To truly establish his sinister rule, he needed to focus on three things: power, wealth, and women. The classic cliches of any villain in stories. He already had power partially secured. He was a sword master, backed by a massive armed fleet, and possessed destructive robots. This left him with wealth and women. Liam received an offer from businessmen of a prominent company to meet him. Sir Thomas accompanied him, carrying a highly valuable shipment. Liam greeted him, saying, "Bravo, you have defeated the Corsairs," and then went straight to the point. "Let us see the shipment." Thomas presented the cargo of gold, which excited Liam slightly. But he quickly remembered that gold in this world was cheaper than dirt, almost like copper, and was mostly used in technical devices, rendering its actual value nearly negligible. Thomas requested a favor from Liam, explaining that trade in space was extremely difficult. Due to the Corsair threat, he asked for some ships from Liam's fleet to protect his shipments. Amaji informed him that the soldiers were ready and awaiting his orders, and that these missions would grant them valuable experience. Liam agreed on the condition that he receive a larger quantity of gold in return. Thomas gladly consented. Upon returning from the meeting, they noticed that the 5th Field Province was thriving astonishingly, despite Liam's young age and limited experience in leading people forward, a rare occurrence for any ruler. The people did not understand why he valued gold, but it did not concern them. He was selling it to a scrap merchant. Liam was pleased, and to increase their confusion, at that moment he hugged the gold and kissed it, which bewildered the servant. Liam explained, "Gold is a symbol of prestige and power," and asked Amaj to use the gold to build a massive swimming pool. The servant understood and remarked, "Yes, correct, and gold is pure, clean, and hypoallergenic." Liam replied, "That is not exactly the reason." Yet he was happy, because he had received his first bribe in life, marking the beginning of his path to wealth. Having secured power and wealth, the remaining matter was women, a desire Liam wished to experience as a human. Given the betrayals he had endured in his previous life, He chose to refuse traditional offers and decided to marry a married woman as a personal challenge. He then went out into the streets to search for women, for he had never left the palace and knew nothing of his cities or the culture of his people. He encountered a very beautiful girl, dressed attractively, and approached her to converse, asking if she would accompany him. She agreed immediately, but suddenly, a pink-colored secretion resembling a balloon emerged from her nose. Liam was shocked, as was Ak, when he saw that everyone around him carried the same balloon in their noses. It turned out that this was the latest fashion in his kingdom, called nasal balloons, popular among women as something cute and attractive. However, the girl's father was furious and hid it. Amaj said to him, "If she does not wish to wear it, she can put one on." Liam shouted, "Wearing this filth is forbidden," and immediately issued a royal decree banning the balloon fashion forever. Liam felt disturbed by the culture of his planet. He had expected to find something resembling the science fiction films he loved, but instead encountered this bizarre balloon trend. He decided to change his country's culture himself and requested the summoning of designers and experts from the best individuals in the empire. Yet Amaj informed him that this was impossible because the cost of bringing the top designers was exceedingly high. She said, "We would need to sell the entire planet." He replied, "Very well, it is not necessary to sell the whole planet. Just send me the most beautiful women in the empire. I will paint upon them what is in my mind." She responded, "But sir, the most beautiful women in the empire already work here in the palace." Liam paused for a moment, realizing the gravity of the matter, yet he did not see it as ethical to take palace employees to become his concubines. Amaj reassured him, saying, "There is no problem. No law forbids this. Everyone who agrees to work in the palace knows what they are doing, and even this is considered a great promotion in rank." Liam said to her, "I love you for no reason, Sheikah." She asked, "I have been behaving this way from the beginning. For what purpose?" Liam answered, "From the start, my plan was to play the role of the evil lord and hide my true feelings. But things got a little scattered. I felt frustrated and could not comprehend how exhausting it is to be an evil lord. Now, all I want is to send money for necessary matters. The rest I will consider later." Meanwhile, we saw Christiana lying inside the treatment tube. She looked at her hands and said, "I see my hands now. I thought I had never seen them before." The doctor entered and said to her, "We have restored your body to its original state using a regenerative treatment." Christiana could hardly believe it. She whispered, "My body cannot be like this. This is a beautiful dream. I will surely die." The doctor replied gently, "No, my dear, this is not a dream. We have used a legendary substance, akin to the elixir of life." Yet Christiana remained unconvinced. "Why would anyone do this for me? I have lost everything. My work, my family, even myself." The doctor reassured her, "No one asked you to pay anything. Everyone transformed under this treatment did so by the order of the legendary Lord Benfield. However, the Lord requested a simple favor in return." Christiana realized that the boy who had saved her so many years ago was the same one standing beside her now. She swore to repay his kindness, no matter the cost. Afterward, they went to the local bar where an old customer entered, requesting his usual drink and offering a round for all the staff on his account. The waitress, surprised by his generosity, greeted him warmly. "Welcome," the man said. "I have become a manager, and I care deeply about my staff. Anyone who wishes to work in the market is welcome." The waitress replied, "No one is available. Everyone is short-staffed," the man explained. "The emperor destroyed the Corsair army and used their treasure to develop the city." The people rejoiced at the determination and progress, while the old man quietly wished for a moment of rest. The waitress remarked, "Sir, you came here especially for this." In the background, the mentor sat listening to the conversation, tense and angry. He had always believed this land should be indebted and ruined. Now, seeing Lord Benfield's plans succeed, he began to suspect that something had gone terribly wrong. Meanwhile, we see the fleet of legends under Commander Liam and Nias, praising Liam, calling him the true brave prince, expressing gratitude for the opportunity to serve with him. Even the mentor listened, waiting for the moment these men might turn against him. Yet all swore complete loyalty to Liam, making the mentor realize something was indeed amiss. Next, we move to Yasushi, who sat enjoying his reward from Liam. However, upon seeing Liam on the television honoring him and his master for mastering the flash strike, fear gripped him. He thought to himself, "I must escape." This stirred the mentor's anger even more, as he had expected this man to be homeless and helpless by now. The spirit of Joe's fleet finally felt as though it had escaped death. Joe asked about the remaining ships, and his deputy replied, "We still have 30,000 ships left, but the 2,000 we used as bait were swallowed by the Empire's forces." Joe did not care, for he regarded them as prisoners of war, and sacrifices were necessary. Joe wondered to himself, How did we get out of there? And how did we end up in the middle of the Empire fleet's training zone? It was clear that their destination was the Benfield territory. The deputy believed they needed to escape through a gate called Doss Gate, but the gate's settings were likely incorrect. Joe grew furious and said, "I will teach those lords a lesson they will never forget for betraying me." At that moment, the guide appeared before him and asked, "Are you certain your anger is directed at the right person?" Joe was startled and asked, "Who are you?" The guide replied, "My name is," then asked, "Do you remember who you were supposed to fight?" The guide cast a spell on Joe, restoring the memory of whom he was meant to fight and mentally programming him toward Liam. Joe regained his objective and decided he must attack Benfield. He directed his fleet toward the planet, saying, "I will make them regret it. Once we finish resupplying the ships, we will head to Benfield and destroy everything." The guide agreed and told him, "Exactly, advance and crush them with your massive fleet. Let them suffer." Then he vanished. We shift to Liam, who was sitting and eating among his attendants, each performing her assigned role. Amagi asked him, "Do you like the food?" But he was not concerned with the taste. He had lost his appetite entirely, thinking to himself, "I have become the prince of evil." Amagi noticed he was lost in thought, so she prepared the food the way he liked it. Yet he ignored it and did not want to eat. He was thinking of leaving the meal untouched without letting guilt bother him. Amagi tried to speak with him while he was preoccupied, but he refused, for she knew he preferred to enjoy his meals in silence. She asked, "Shall I bring you some women from the base?" He replied, "Do you approve of that?" She said, "Yes, it's fine." Then she added, "And if you wish, I can bring them to you right now." Liam answered, "I do not want any other woman." Amagi did not know that he already had one, so he did not need more, and she told him, "Very well." She then said, "I am not a woman. I am an artificial intelligence, and I will not be able to give you an heir." He questioned her again, and she replied, "I do not understand the point you are referring to." He told her, "Good, for I am an artificial intelligence, and I possess no awareness of consent or refusal. What matters to me is that you are happy." Liam grew attached to the artificial intelligence with a sense of affection, seeing a future where everything might collapse if such a force was not handled wisely. She asked him, "Do you want me to bring you women?" He did not answer her immediately, for she had noticed that he already had many. She then asked, "Do you see these robots you have? Are these your women?" He replied, "Stop asking these questions." She said to him, "But Brian will be extremely angry if I do not bring elegant women to the place." Prime did not explain his point of view to her, for he did not understand the dreams of men and women who welcomed this situation as if it were something simple. After that, Okada came out, planning to impose heavy taxes and fill his pockets like the evil prince, while in truth he was drowning in debt, exactly as he had been in his previous life. Amagi asked him, "What do you wish to accomplish, O evil prince?" He said to her, "Raise the taxes and make the people suffer." She told him, "That will increase the revenue, but it will destroy the land in the long term, and we do not recommend that. However, we can study the condition of the people in the city of Benfield and raise the taxes if necessary." He answered her, "I do not want difficult ideas. I only want to misuse my authority and become a tyrant, and that is all there is to it." Amagi thought for a moment and said to him, if he did that, he would not be able to repay his debts, reminding him of the days he was tortured by collectors in his previous life. Then she asked him, "Do you not feel satisfied with your current life?" She was prepared to do all she could to help him solve his problems, and despite the debt, he was managing land after land, even leaving his former family behind, mastering the flash technique, seizing the pirate's treasure, gaining wealth and power, and everything was progressing well. Most importantly, Amagi was with him, and these reasons were enough to make him fully content with his life. Thus, he saw this as the perfect opportunity to fulfill his ambitions, immerse himself in his authority as the evil prince, and celebrate his good fortune in his new life. Meanwhile, Amagi could not understand his thinking, and said to him for the third time, "My son, I am an artificial intelligence, and it is difficult for me to understand what goes on in your mind, but I will assist you in anything you desire." Then we moved to her cleaning room, where the robots were still at work. One of the robots spoke, saying that she had tried to change her hairstyle to distract Liam and prevent him from noticing her. Yet Liam discovered it, and he pushed them all together despite their bodies being nearly identical. Shirani told them that she considered this moment very precious and had recorded and kept it, but Archmi and Shiomi objected, saying that they wanted to do the same action. At that moment, Amagi appeared and told them that she would not allow it. Shirani had not imagined that what she did might upset Liam, but Amagi told her she would confiscate the video and present it to Liam, asking her, "Were you joking with her? You must not leave such data behind," and then depart. After that, she left, and it seemed that the AI here began to change. Then we went to her office, which Ibrahim entered, informing him that he had very bad news. The Krasna had declared war on them, and thousands of ships were gathering at the planet's borders. Liam saw that announcing their war in this manner was relatively civilized for the Krasna, as they usually did not launch sudden attacks. Amagi, however, saw that they were only giving them time to grow fearful because they had invaded the pirate treasure island. If this were revenge, they would not stop at killing only a few individuals. Liam knew that the leader of the pirate soul was a man who enjoyed torturing and dismembering families. Amagi observed that he possessed immense power, which made him arrogant enough to declare war openly. Afterward, Bran decided to gather the judges and officials for a meeting. There, he informed them that the Krasna leader was named Joe, and that he wanted money, women, and men. One of them asked, "And why does he want men?" Bran replied, "For war. Do not let your imagination take you elsewhere, my friend." This statement ignited Liam's anger, and he thought to himself, this man is truly evil. Bran was surprised to see Liam start preparing to depart for the city of Benfield. But in truth, Liam was irritated because he felt that he was not as evil as he should be. One of the officials suggested negotiating with the Krasna and attempting to resolve the matter peacefully, but Liam asked, "The strength of these pirates, what exactly is it?" Brian answered, "They have 30,000 ships." Liam then asked, "And how many do we have?" Brian replied, "Only 5,000. But the commander of the forces said that numbers are not everything, and even if they surrendered, the Krasna would not leave them unharmed." Another officer remarked that entering such a battle would be a guaranteed loss, an act of sheer folly, especially since they were still awaiting support from the Empire. Liam began to think and notice something peculiar. The treasure they had seized from Joe was not substantial enough to drive him to attack with his entire army. Therefore, there must be a greater reason compelling him. Amagi requested permission to speak, and when Liam allowed her, she explained that she had analyzed the data obtained from Joe's ships that they had captured, then simulated the battle. The outcome revealed that the chance of victory did not exceed 3%. Bran was shocked and said, "If only the new weapon in Factory 7 had been ready." Imthal asked, "What is this? A new weapon?" Bran replied, "Yes, it is called the Devastator." The moment Brian mentioned the weapon, time suddenly froze. Liam attempted to contact them, but no one responded. He recalled that Nita, in his previous life, had told him that time stoppages were deliberate in 90% of cases. At that moment, the mentor appeared. The mentor said that he wished to take some of Liam's time, but Liam refused, stating that he faced a significant problem that required immediate resolution. The mentor replied, "I am the one who brought the Krasna." Then he asked, "Isn't the city of Penfield drowning in debt?" Liam answered, "Indeed, and these debts slow me down and prevent me from doing what I desire." The mentor said, "And that is precisely why I brought the Krasna to you. They possess an enormous amount of treasure. If you defeat them, it will all become yours." Liam listened intently, as the mentor explained that the Krasna treasures he had previously seized were insignificant, but if Joe were victorious, he would gain both honor and immense wealth. The mentor added that everything had been planned from the beginning so that Liam would appear as a simple man starting from the bottom, making his fame all the greater upon reaching glory. A surge of excitement seized Liam, and he turned to the mentor asking, "Have you considered all of this?" The mentor smiled and replied, "Of course, this is the least you deserve," and then vanished. Liam, brimming with enthusiasm, thanked the mentor, his heart alight with joy at the coming challenge. With time restored to its natural flow, Liam finally resolved to attack the Krasna, led by Joe. Yet the sector chief objected, emphasizing that the Krasna possessed mercenaries and that Benfield lacked knights, which heightened Liam's tension. The chief declared firmly, "This is the final decision. Unleash the battle." Brian contacted Amagi, anxious over the prospect of losing the engagement. Amagi reassured him, saying, "Calm yourself. Do not act as if we have already lost. Liam has made the right choice by confronting Joe." Amagi observed that Liam's chance of victory was only 3%, yet she deemed this far preferable to surrendering to Joe's terms. According to Joe's history, if he were victorious, he would annihilate the entire planet. Thus, even 3% was vastly better than 0. Brian understood the rationale but remained unconvinced, believing that had Liam been born 100 years earlier, his odds might have been higher. Liam, however, brimmed with self-confidence, certain that the mentor was at his side. His mind delved into visions of the spoils and treasures awaiting him after the war. From afar, the mentor watched, a bitter pang of resentment swelling in his chest. His negative emotions toward Liam's success grew, and he wished that the Krasna could capture Liam, turning him into their plaything, torturing him daily to savor the dark feelings Liam would emit. Meanwhile, Joe addressed his forces, proclaiming that anyone who delivered Liam alive would receive a double reward. His enthusiasm to make Liam his new plaything was evident. When asked about Liam by his secretary, he replied, "I do not love him. I seek merely a new amusement." He openly revealed his intentions to torment Liam's people after the war and transform them into monsters. Liam's followers, who had initially doubted him, began to grasp the gravity of the situation. They discovered that Liam possessed not only a remarkable political mind, but also unparalleled skill in the art of the sword. Liam was pleased when he learned of the announced bounty on his head, and said to himself, "The Krasna think they stand alone, but I will seize their treasures." After 3 long and tedious days, nothing occurred except what transpired on the front lines, where the second-in-command reported that Liam's army was exhausted, while the vast number of Krasna posed a serious concern. Liam had no choice but to descend directly to the battlefield. As he prepared to issue his orders, he adjusted his communication device, ready to mobilize. When contact was cut off and Liam could no longer communicate with the fleet, a massive swarm of pirate ships suddenly appeared above his vessel, causing the fleet to scatter. Yet Liam remained steadfast and observed, with utter coldness, that their plan was foolish. They were dividing themselves and sending only 500 ships to capture him. Imaji, however, was more perceptive. She realized that the true purpose of the assault was to break the formation of Liam's army and create a gap for attack, and that the 500 ships sent by Joe were merely a cheap, worthless sacrifice. One of Liam's subordinates informed him that those ships did not belong to the pirates at all, but were soldiers of the Empire forced to fight under Joe's command after being previously defeated. This made sense. People always seek survival. Yet Imaji understood that mercy would be of no use. They could not be trusted again. Liam hesitated, but finally took decisive action and annihilated them. When Joe received the news of what had transpired, he was astonished but focused on another matter, the minor chaos that had disrupted Liam's fleet. He seized the opportunity and attacked with his full strength. As Liam's fleet advanced, it retreated slightly, maintaining the same distance, leading Joe to believe that Liam was fearful, and he ordered his ships to continue the pursuit. Suddenly, the frontline ships exploded, revealing the surprise. The entire space was filled with mines hidden by magic. Joe could not believe he had fallen into such a simple trap. Yet relying on his numerical superiority, he ordered his forces to press the attack and traverse the mines, fully aware that the front lines contained only Imperial soldiers, meaning he was sacrificing them, not his true Krasna men. On the opposing side, Liam's soldiers used their own bodies to shield his ship, ready to sacrifice themselves for him. Liam rejected this, shouting loudly, "I will not allow a single one of my men to be harmed. Announce to all that I will annihilate every enemy, and as long as I live, no ship shall ever breach my planet." He decided to mount his combat robot and appointed Imaji as the deputy commander. Imaji immediately began calculating the strategy at high speed and prepared to execute his orders, saying to him, "Good luck, my lord." Then he entered his robot, heading into battle, while Imaji assumed control of the ship and began issuing commands to launch Liam into the fight. She went to order the knights to prepare the remaining ships for departure, but the knights could not believe that a machine could command them. They said to themselves, "How could a mechanical being guide us? We are humans, not toys." Imaji tried to explain to them that Liam was going into the battle himself, that he would not leave anything behind, and that if they did not support him, he would remain alone and die. She told them, "My loyalty belongs to no one, neither to you nor to the people. My loyalty is to him alone. I will do whatever is necessary to protect him." Her words touched their hearts, and they said to themselves, "How can a mere doll possess more loyalty than us?" So they swore to defend Liam with their lives and immediately prepared for battle. Imaji launched Liam's ship, named Afid, and he set off with full confidence, convinced that the battle was nearly decided. He entered the space-time tunnel, intending to surprise Joe while he was unprepared. But as soon as he entered, he received an alert of a breach, and the crew was ordered to brace for combat. He charged into the midst of enemy ships and began drawing his weapons, a sword, a pistol, and a rifle. And with unwavering confidence he declared, "I will not lose this battle. It is my battle." Then he began fighting with all his strength, while his soldiers protected his back. He knew the war would not be easy, but would it truly be as he imagined? Liam could not stop himself from panicking as he imagined the horrifying scenario of Joe capturing him. The disaster was that all his ammunition had run out. He had not accounted for such a situation, and foolishly assumed that a few bullets would be enough to destroy 30,000 ships, as if he understood nothing at all. He tried to think quickly and figure out what he could do, but suddenly he was struck by a powerful shot. one strong enough to let him know that someone had deliberately fired it at him with great force. Indeed, an enemy fighter had reached him. But strangely, Liam did not feel disturbed. He felt joy, because finally, amid all that chaos, a strong warrior had emerged to face him. He drew his sword and said confidently, "Come on, let's shake the world." But as soon as the knight in front of him attacked, Liam was taken aback when the man said, "What is this? You are not weak at all. Your sword is heavy. Where did you learn this?" Liam raised his chest with pride and said, "I learned according to the style of the blade of the Flash." The knight stared at him in bewilderment and said, "What style is that? I have never heard of it in my life." Liam's anger ignited and he shouted, "How can you not know it? My commander uses this style, and it is the greatest of all. Clearly you are ignorant." But the knight was unconvinced and said confidently, "I have fought warriors from the strongest academies, and if this style were real, I would have heard of it." Liam replied with irritation, "Then take it." And with a single strike, he killed him. Suddenly, he realized that perhaps it would have been better to leave him alive, to go out and tell the world of Liam's monstrous power. But time had passed. He then decided to leave some skilled fighters in a state between life and death so they could spread his name, serving as his personal advertisement. Nevertheless, the Akrasna remained unconvinced of his strength. They kept repeating, "How can a noble and poor fighter like him possess such power, such a weapon, and such armor?" Liam's anger flared, and he attacked them with the flash sword technique, pressing his assault relentlessly. Suddenly, he received a notification that a part of his armor had been damaged. He discovered that his robot could no longer withstand his violent style, yet he said to himself, "This is not the time. I must continue the fight." Another enemy then attacked the ship he was commanding. Liam began to retaliate, but this time he started losing many enemies at once, and it became difficult to remain dominant while fighting alone. The fighters aboard the ship began to feel fear and said to him, "We can no longer endure this." Then came the shocking news. The probability of victory had dropped from 3% to only 1%. Suddenly, before he found himself completely surrounded, a new ship descended from the sky. It was Christiana, returning to the battlefield stronger, smarter, and more ferocious than ever. She began fighting alongside Liam, and Imaji did not stop either, starting to communicate with the 3rd and 7th armies to acquire new weapons. The second phase of the battle began, and the intensity of the attack slightly eased. Christiana descended upon the enemy like vengeance incarnate for what they had done to her. It was clear she had come to erase them completely, and she greatly assisted Liam. Yet Liam was annoyed, for he was the unparalleled villain, meant to be the strongest always, not to have someone else seize glory. He summoned the same rocket punch that had struck No previously, but this time he modified it so he could control that arm. With a much larger sword he then summoned, he delivered a flash strike that completely shifted the balance of the battle. The entire fleet stood astonished at what they witnessed, and Christiana was amazed by what she saw. As for Joe, he trembled inside his ship. The probability of victory had now risen to 83%, and Liam remained determined to crush his enemies. He knew they were numerous, but that did not concern him. Their number, however vast, held no value in his eyes. What pleased him most was that he would receive rewards for their heads. As he fought, Christiana watched him with great admiration, impressed by his skills, acknowledging that she had never seen anyone like him before. Truthfully, she was enjoying every moment. Looking at him, she was lost in thought, reflecting on his image and all he had done for her, unable to imagine her life without him. While she was absorbed in her thoughts, a knight attempted to attack her, but she was Christiana, the queen of skirmishes. She unleashed her pent-up fury, a wrath born from the harm inflicted by Joe and his crew. She fought mercilessly, so much so that her attendants grew anxious. She was not known for losing control in such a manner, which indicated that she was on the verge of collapse unless they succeeded in calming her. As for Liam, he had his own motivation. He remembered those who had demanded debts from him in his past life, recalling the cruelty they had shown him. He resolved that any villain confronting him would be defeated without mercy. In the midst of the battle, Amagi informed him that a fleet of knights was approaching. He turned on them and defeated them with a single strike. The knights aboard his ship looked on in astonishment, unable to deny that he must always remain on their side. For if he became their enemy, inevitable destruction awaited them. This child's life had never been easy, gentlemen. His parents had left him a poor, bankrupt city, yet he had built it into a prosperous, powerful metropolis under his reign. Even now, he fought far from it to protect his people and to ensure the knights would not attack his city. Everyone was certain of one thing: even if the city ever fell, as long as Liam remained alive, he would restore it to its glory. making the destruction of the city essentially impossible. Amid the war, he noticed a formation of ships resembling a central headquarters. He attempted to attack it, but a strong shield protected it. He drew closer and discovered that breaching it was impossible. As soon as Amagi saw him, she immediately sent assistants to penetrate the shield. From her ship, she directed all their fleets to fire upon the shield simultaneously to weaken it. They unleashed a fiery blue beam that persisted until the shield finally shattered. As soon as the barrier broke, they began bombarding the ship responsible for its operation, creating a small gap in the shield. Liam passed through it while the others continued firing. Joe's assistant reported that shield ship number 58 had been breached, and they were instructed to deal with it immediately. Joe ordered them to close the gap quickly, but they did not realize that the very person they were trying to stop had already entered and was advancing relentlessly toward them. As Liam progressed toward the heart of the ship, Joe began to feel tension when his assistant informed him that the enemy was approaching them at rocket-like speed. Joe looked at the shield Liam was wearing and saw it was of the Avid model. He immediately ordered his knights to kill him at once. Yet his aide informed him that most of the knights had already been defeated, and the few remaining could barely maintain the shield. When Joe realized that the tide of battle had completely turned against him, he decided to flee rather than end up as a slave, ordering that the survivors be left behind. No one could believe that a single commander had destroyed the entire fleet, and Imagi announced that the rate of survival for individual escapees was minimal, adding that she would report the events to the leadership. Joe demanded the ship's pilot to accelerate, but it was impossible, for Allied knights were on the way. Allies. That did not matter. Survival was paramount. Unfortunately, he could not reach his ship and struck a part of it with force. Realizing that the ship could not escape, he ordered the use of a small escape vessel to ensure the survival of those on board. As Liam attempted to flee with the escape ship, he realized the true objective was the treasure. He informed his knights that the time had come to reclaim the treasure specified by the mentor. His knights warned him that advancing inside the enemy vessel could be dangerous, as Joe might detonate it, but he did not heed their warnings, reasoning that if Joe had intended to commit suicide, he would not have tried to flee in the first place. Despite the warnings, they entered the ship, his knights guarding him and instructing him not to advance to the front lines. Liam, undeterred, moved forward and noticed hidden knights around the ship, eliminating those before them. Suddenly, a group of heavily armed fighters appeared, attempting to protect him and ordering him to retreat. Yet he refused, standing resolute before everyone. These knights, who had formerly served nobles, knew that nobles were akin to thieves, each acting for personal gain. They resolved to confront Liam but suddenly froze, as if movement had been stolen from them, while Liam walked among them without hesitation. His knights asked him, "What are you doing?" He replied, "Do not pursue them." They were astonished and asked why, to which he answered, "I struck them in a flash." Indeed, the knights fell dead. This was the impossible flash technique. Liam continued his journey. Every knight who obstructed his path was eliminated without hesitation. When he reached the engine room aboard the pirate's ship, he found not Joe, but his aide, begging for mercy. The aide claimed that Joe had exploited him, and that he was not truly evil as he appeared, insisting that the greater Joe did everything himself. He added that sparing Liam would reveal the location of Joe's treasure. Liam looked at him as if the man's words were beginning to persuade him slightly. Yet when the man knelt before him, Liam's knights insisted that this man was Joe's aide and utterly untrustworthy. Liam knew this well, but he wanted to see the story through to its end. When the man offered to work with him, Liam responded without hesitation, "No problem." He then continued his path, indifferent to who might align with a traitor. Joe was still fleeing, thinking of ways to survive, yet he realized that surrender meant certain death. If he yielded, the guild would hand him over for the bounty, making his demise inevitable. Joe considered offering his treasures to Liam in exchange for his life, but he realized it was a poor deal, for Liam would seize the treasures anyway after Joe's death. Meanwhile, he encountered the mentor, who sought a way to defeat Liam without Joe's intervention. The mentor granted Joe a supernatural power, astonishing him with the sheer magnitude of this ability. The mentor explained that this power would help him defeat Liam. Thrilled, Joe felt his body become like solid rock, impervious to any weapon, confident that he was strong enough to face Liam, all of this unbeknownst to Liam, who was still roaming the ship in search of Joe and the treasures. Suddenly, he noticed the luck dog, the same dog that had accompanied him in his previous life, remaining loyal despite losing everything, a companion he had cherished greatly. Liam continued forward, and a golden cube fell from Joe's aide. He grabbed it eagerly, declaring, "This gold is mine now," known as he was for his love of gold. Suddenly, he noticed something around him, in a direction he hadn't observed before. At the end of the corridor, he found a blocked passage, yet he sensed something significant there. He ordered his knights to demolish the wall, and upon entering, he found his intuition was correct. A pile of ancient artifacts. The knights declared that these artifacts would bring substantial wealth, but Liam was unconvinced, fearing they might be fake, as had happened with the collectibles in his family home, all of which had turned out to be imitations. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a light and swift sword, immediately becoming attached to it and deciding to take it. One of the knights advised him to keep it carefully, as it was a valuable relic. Liam replied, "What use is a sword that cannot be wielded in war?" Things were going smoothly, until he received news that his knights were facing Joe's monstrous creature, which was killing them. Despite their use of every weapon at hand, guns were ineffective, and even the bazookas yielded no results. Joe shouted in anger, while the knights contacted Liam, pleading with him not to charge into the heart of the battle. Yet, of course, Liam leapt directly into the fray, attempting to strike Joe from behind with his sword. However, the blade could not pierce Joe's body, and Liam realized that Joe had become as solid as steel. Undeterred, Liam switched to his new sword and wielded the katana, severing Joe's hand. Joe screamed in pain, but Liam struck again, cutting off the other hand. Even then, Joe did not surrender. He attempted to attack Liam, but Liam evaded his assault, leapt behind him, and severed his legs, leaving Joe sprawled on the ground, powerless to resist. When the knights called out Liam's name, Joe was shocked to discover that his opponent was the noble known across the planet. He begged Liam to spare his life, offering treasures equal to the bounty placed upon his head. Liam refused, declaring that all the treasures he now possessed were his, leaving Joe only the satisfaction of taking the bounty. Humiliated, Joe attempted to attack Liam once more, but Liam swiftly cut off his second leg. Realizing he had no escape, Joe pleaded for cooperation, claiming he possessed power that could be of use. Liam paid no heed. He sought only to claim Joe as his bounty. One of the knights asked Liam if he truly intended to take Joe. Liam replied, "Yes, for the bounty will indeed be of use." The knight responded, "With criminals like Joe, the bounty means either death or life, and since Joe has killed many, it is only right that they avenge themselves and strike him down. That is your command." Liam then returned to his ship, instructing the knights to care for the survivors. Imagi greeted him warmly, and Liam felt immense joy upon being reunited. He wondered how the mentor must feel now, knowing that even with his trump card, he had been defeated. On Liam's planet, the cities now flourished like blossoming flowers, all threats eradicated, and the people lived in peace. Even the tavern patrons who had spoken for years of Liam's rule when he was merely 5 years old now expressed gratitude toward the young man they might never see. As for the evil heir, he remained in his palace, where a merchant from Henry's company arrived with a new proposal. The merchant wished to purchase the treasures Liam had taken from the Krasna following their defeat. Upon hearing the price, Liam sought Imagi's advice, and she recommended accepting the deal, as it would allow them to pay off a significant portion of his family's debts. Liam remained astounded by the sheer magnitude of the debt. Even selling all the treasures he had obtained from the war would barely suffice to settle it. The merchant drew Liam's attention to a medical device he had previously developed to treat individuals subjected to experiments by Joe. Seeking the data from these trials to create a new device, Liam called upon Christiana, who had now returned in her true form as a knight. She knelt before him and informed him that she had completed her treatment and had officially left the clinic. Liam thanked her for returning to live a normal life as a human. Yet before she could speak further, Liam interrupted her, stating that he was not interested in conversation and had only called her because the merchant wished to review her medical treatment results. Perhaps Christiana understood this too literally, for she adjusted her attire to prevent the merchant from discovering anything unintended. At that moment, Prime intervened, and Liam informed her that a letter had arrived from the capital planet of the Empire, congratulating her on her defeat of Joe's gang and the Krasna, and inviting her to attend an honorary ceremony on the capital planet to receive a Medal of Honor. After some time, Liam traveled with Imagi to the capital planet where they settled. During this period, Liam encountered 4 strangers whose identities he did not know, which angered one of them. Questioning how Liam could not recognize them, Imagi informed him that one of them was his father, and he finally remembered the man who had imposed all those debts upon him when he was 5 years old. His mother was also present alongside his grandfather and grandmother. She still loved him silently, feeling rivalry because of her attachment to Amagi, who had been his 5th birthday gift. She advised him to distance himself slightly from Amagi, as the Empire did not favor intelligent doms. Liam's grandfather commanded him to dismiss Amagi, mocking him by saying he still required a governess, despite Amagi having grown up. Amagi stepped back to spare Liam further embarrassment, yet he requested that she remain by his side, having grown weary of his family's interference. Finally, he asked them what they wanted from him, and his father candidly replied that their sole goal was for Liam to pay their bills. His parents provided him with a monthly allowance, yet his mother was dissatisfied with these funds. Liam returned to his decisive demeanor, affirming that he would grant a fixed sum of money each month. Amagi smiled faintly, realizing that those depleting his wealth were not truly his family, but intruders. Liam drew his sword and declared that his fortune and lands belonged solely to him, that no one else would have authority over them, and that his former family had now departed. He resolved to return later when his mood had improved. Then he turned to Amjaja and said honestly, "You alone are my family in this world." At the same time, the mentor grew increasingly frustrated and decided to exploit his power to influence Liam's family, attempting to brainwash them into formally requesting a change of the head of the family so that he could seize control of Liam's possessions. Should Liam resist, the mentor planned to hire assassins to eliminate him. The mentor was confident that this plan represented Liam's inevitable end, yet the dog of fortune, who had saved him countless times before, was watching everything and might protect him once again. While the mentor and his family were talking, Amjaja passed through the corridor and noticed the dog emerging from one of the rooms. She approached the door to observe what was happening, using her technological eye to scan the room and identify who was present and what was occurring. She noticed Cliff and the others. Instead of knocking, they stood listening to the conversation. She heard Cliff ask, "What will they tell the Emperor when they request the Count be replaced?" They planned to claim that Liam possessed an intelligent automaton, and that he had brought it to the palace as proof that he did not deserve the title of Count. Amjaja showed no objection, sitting silently and sorrowfully while observing the gathering, as Cliff and his relatives departed for the Empire to execute their plan. Yet the Emperor rejected their request, leaving them stunned, as they had assumed he would comply immediately. They asked, "Why do you refuse?" The Emperor replied, "Liam is the Count that every city needs. He pays his debts, improves the lives of his people, protects his possessions, and recently defeated the Krasna under Joe, which brought him great honor and pride, and enhanced the prestige of the entire realm." They then asked, "If we were in your place, would we approve removing someone like Liam to restore the weak to the throne?" The Emperor answered candidly, "Owning an automaton or robot is not a crime, and as long as no law forbids it, there is nothing wrong. People, however, may view it as an unusual habit. At the same time, allowing Liam to continue as Count benefits the Empire financially." They attempted to tempt him with promises. "If you restore us to the throne, we will pay the taxes, and you will have no debts." Yet the Emperor remained unmoved. Having observed the behavior of previous kings, he refused their request and expelled them from the palace. After their departure, he said, "It is now complete." Later, Amjaja met with the Emperor after overhearing the conversation to confirm that Liam's position would remain secure. She entered his office and thanked him for rejecting Cliff's request. The Emperor then inquired further about the matter. She asked him if he considered her proposal reasonable. After all, Amji had previously promised the Emperor that if he refused the offer of those dogs, she would use all the funds they had collected from Joe's pirates to settle the taxes owed by them, ensuring no debts remained. The Emperor replied that the funds were sufficient, yet he wondered whether she failed to see that they could have used that money otherwise, or whether her proposal truly served his interests. But Amji insisted, stating that her offer benefited them all, for securing her position would enable them to reap greater profits in the future. The Emperor remarked that the Duma was indeed foolish, for even if she had not presented this offer, he would not have permitted Cliff to return to the throne, meaning she gained nothing by paying those funds in the first place. Amji, however, did not concern herself with whether the proposal earned her anything. For her, the outcome was the same regardless. She returned to Liam, who was asleep against her lap, and he began complaining about the endless parties he was forced to attend, though, to be fair, he had enjoyed himself a little this time. Amji was pleased that he had found some enjoyment in the experience, while she spent her time reflecting on the gains she had earned by staying by his side and the danger he would face if she left. Ultimately, she decided it was time to depart. She told him she had served him for a long time, and that he had approached true adulthood. In this world, adulthood was 50 years, and he was now 40. From her perspective, she was correct, though he still felt the time had been far too short. She told him that it was time to leave, so Liam rose and put on his shoes, asking if she wished to take a break, if she desired a moment for herself. But that was not her intention. She wished to leave for good. Liam could not believe it, insisting that she could not abandon him, complaining that everyone who had entered his life had eventually left, and she could not do the same. Amji reminded him how the people of the city treated the Duma, and she told him that he had treated her as a human, not a robot. He had loved her and valued her opinion in everything, and that had been enough. Yet she could not destroy him, and therefore she had to depart. Liam insisted she stay, and she reminded him of the 3 rules he had set for her. The first rule: do not harm him. Do not do anything that would put him in danger. She told him that she had now become a point of vulnerability in his life, a risk to him, and therefore she must step away. He reminded her of the second rule, that she must obey all his orders. He commanded her to stay, but she told him that this rule conflicted with the first one. She could not remain. When Liam realized he could not convince her, he felt a deep sadness, and she too was sorrowful, because she was about to leave. He reminded her of the third rule, that she must protect herself. She said she had no problem with that, as she could defend herself even from afar, but Liam did not mean that. He was speaking about her feelings. He asked her if she felt the desire to leave him, even though she was not human and did not possess emotions like theirs. She confessed that when she thought she might have to leave him, she felt her system under immense pressure, as if she would collapse. She also admitted she did not wish to leave, and a tear rolled down her cheek. It was a profoundly moving moment, but in the end, he cautioned my friend, pay attention. Liam realized he had one last way to make her stay. He said to her, if you walk out of this door, my lady, I will drink until I die. I will gamble and lose all the wealth I have earned, and I will die penniless in the streets, or the remaining pirates will come to take revenge and kill me if this is what you wish. Then go ahead, leave. When she understood that the danger he threatened himself with was far greater than any risk she might pose by staying by his side, she decided to remain. He embraced her and reminded her that they had always been together from the beginning. In any case, they all returned to their home. When they disembarked from the ship, Liam began to reflect on his life now. He could only thank the mentor for this solid life he was living. The mentor, meanwhile, felt a sharp pain in his heart from how much Liam thanked him and kept saying, enough, please, stop thanking me. And here the story ends, dear viewer, and we hope that you enjoyed it. If you would like a second season, let us know in the comments. And before you close the video, don't forget to click the like button to encourage us, subscribe to follow more episodes, and activate the notification bell to watch all the new anime on the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments, and we will meet you in new episodes. Farewell.